Thanks for joining us on Over My Dead Poddy, the podcast hosted by Nichola Reeder and Carl Tate that aims to bust those myths about all things funerals and answer the questions you never dared ask. So stick in your earbuds, listen, and then send us your questions for the things we still haven't answered for you. Happy listening. So welcome back to Season 3, Episode 5 of Over My Dead Poddy. It is so good to be back behind the mic. Carl, how are you doing?
Hi everybody, yes, this is absolutely amazing to be back and really looking forward to this episode.
Perfect. So we have been off air for a couple of weeks because myself and producer Steve were getting some well-needed R&R over in Portugal, which was beautiful, and we'll talk about that in a second. But Carl, what's been occupying your time over the last couple of weeks?
Well, where to begin, Nicola, where to begin? So Richmond's been very busy. Work, of course, is very busy as always, but the town itself has been great. We've had some freedom parades and so on. So yeah, it's been fantastic, thank you. How was the holiday?
You know, it was brilliant, thank you, Carl. Just what we needed, although with a 10-month-old baby, it had its moments, although she was an absolute dream to look after. But what I did want to pick up with, actually, in this episode was, as little death geeks, Steve and I had a wander up to the local cemetery in Faragudo in Portugal, where we were staying. And it was really interesting to see that because funerals have to happen within 48 hours of death in Portugal, 72 if there's a post-mortem, there isn't really resting at a funeral home. There's a central mortuary where the deceased are taken and the family can go view there. There's less need for embalming because you have no period of viewing, there is no time. And then you can have your service at that mortuary, you can have your wake there, and then you are taken for burial. So there's very little cremation in Portugal. It's a Catholic country. It's growing as cremation, but it's still relatively small, I believe. If you're from Portugal and I'm wrong, then please correct me. But as we understood it, it's mainly burial. And when we went into the cemetery, there was lots of burial plots that looked like they were very newly dug. The earth was very fresh. But there was all around the walls of the cemetery these lockers, what looked like lockers. So locked doors, there was a key to it, a glass front, and inside there were cards, there were little toys, there were flowers, and then there were caskets. And then there were some massive big marble mausoleums, sort of Portaloo-sized mausoleums that had seats and altars. And what we learned was that in Portugal, you rent your burial space for about 5 years. At the end of 5 years, your body's exhumed, your bones are washed, and your bones are given back to your family. At that point, your family need to store those bones somewhere. So it might be in the walls of the cemetery, in one of these lockers, or it might be in your family's own kind of mausoleum, tombstone. And some of those have been there for 100 years. It's got the family name on, probably got 6 or 7 deceased in. If when you're exhumed after 5 years, your body isn't quite ready for that, you're then reburied for another couple of years, and then your body's exhumed again, bones are washed, handed back to the family. It was a beautiful space. It was so peaceful. The birds were singing. It was a really interesting way of seeing how other cultures, how other countries deal with some of the logistical challenges, so the heat and the population. But it felt to me a little bit like you lay a body to rest and then you sort of disturbing it again.
Yeah,
a little bit strange.
It does sound a little bit out of the ordinary, but that's just because that's what we're used to here in the UK. I mean, hats off for you going visiting the cemetery on holiday. That is real dedication, so that's got to be applauded, certainly. But I mean, there is lots to be said about other cultures, certainly, that maybe we can learn things from them, and maybe you never know, they might catch on in this country, but then again, we are quite traditional here, and things might just stay as they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about the thought of a funeral within 48 hours, Carl? Does that terrify you?
No, actually it doesn't. I mean, we always go on, when I started in this business and the industry, so 14 years ago, people would potentially pass away on the Monday and you would have the funeral on the Friday. So, I mean, that's a little bit shorter, of course, 48 hours, but that wouldn't shock me. It would become the new norm. And it would change things dramatically. You would lose quite a lot of things. But yeah, why not? Why not give it a go?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we almost have too much time sometimes to make decisions, and when we have 3 or 4 weeks before a service, I've got a couple on at the moment that are 2 or 3 months. We're going for various reasons. We're going into services, and you write a eulogy. You can overthink things. You can overthink the detail. You can overthink the decisions you make. And is this right? Rather than just going with your gut instinct. So you can almost have too much time.
I totally agree, and I think that's where we're going with things now. Is that the time frame is a massive factor in people's decision making, because previously, if you had a week week within the funeral, you had to decide in a couple of days what music you wanted, what coffin, what flowers. The whole thing had to be decided, in a few days. Whereas now, as you suggested, I mean, we've got funerals on together that are into late July, mid-July, and a lot of these families are taking their time and saying, well, we've got a bit of time, but it soon comes around, and it becomes a funeral director's nightmare, because you have so many funerals on and not one of them have got decisions made, and it does sometimes get tight, gets close to the wire, and that brings us round to why we do these podcasts, is to start talking about it and write these decisions down and start planning. So great tie in there, Nichola, well done, thanks.
It's almost like we planned it.
Yeah, it's almost like we planned it.
So this episode of the podcast, we have obviously had many guests on so far this series, and we will continue to invite many more guests on in future episodes. We are going to get someone from the clergy in to talk about religious funerals. We're going to get some of other suppliers to the funeral industry, people who are doing legacy websites or different things to do with ashes, to talk about what they can offer. But we've had so many questions in while we've been off air, because we've had 5,000 downloads.
Yes, that's a big shout out. Absolutely incredible. Genuinely, I'm blown away by that. It's brilliant.
And we've got 1,600 followers on Facebook. So, in our expectations, that's blown us away. So thank you. Thank you so much to every single listener, every single person who shared, clicked, liked our episode. It means the world. But we're going to do a quick fire question session episode today, trying to address some of those queries that have come in and bust some myths. So, Carl, one of the first questions I had in while I was lying on a sun lounger with a cocktail that I thought was really interesting was, do funeral directors ever get scared about funerals?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, and thanks for whoever that was that sent it in. It's a great question. I think really the answer is I wouldn't say that funeral directors get scared. I've, as I said, been doing this for 14 years, and at every funeral, still to this day, just before we're going out on the service, there's a sort of small knot in your stomach. And that's not because you've forgotten something or there's something wrong. I think really it's just because you care. And if that sort of feeling was to go away, it's almost like that you really have just it's that job that you just give up on and not really bothered about. And there's that many moving parts to a funeral that potentially could go wrong, but because you've checked and double checked and triple checked sometimes, it's that feeling of not being scared, but it's just you want things to be right, and that's where that's where the high levels of expectation and high standards are for funeral directors. What about yourself? Do you get scared as a celebrant?
I think scared is perhaps the wrong word, but nervous, yes, absolutely. There's still that tension, exactly as you mentioned just there, that you want things to be right, you want things to be perfect, and you're triple checking. I think with a great funeral director who gives you access to Obitus, the crematorium systems, it's just that triple checking all the time. Have I got the name right? When I'm writing a committal and I might want to say reunited with your beloved husband, Phil, John, Eric, I just want to make sure I've got the right names. It's triple checking everything. Have we got a photo going on the screen? Have we got any tensions amongst the family? So there's that nervousness that you just want it to be right.
Yeah, it's that slight apprehension, isn't it? And I think when it's a little bit closer to home as well, sometimes when you have friends or even family members who you're looking after, that's when everything the levels, so the heighten, really sort of gets you going as such. In England, you have celebrants and ministers to take services. Up in Scotland, it's a little bit different, and you have sometimes the funeral directors take services. And I can vouch for Stan that this is something I've experienced, and I must admit I didn't get scared, but I was nervous because that was a little bit out of my comfort zone, delivering a service. It worked perfectly fine. I'm not saying I'm a celebrant or any way qualified to conduct services as such. But that was quite an experience for me. Yeah.
And is there a situation where, so for one of the other questions we've had in from somebody is what happens if nobody turns up to a funeral? So was it that there weren't the people there to deliver the service, or there was nobody else there? How did you get to that point where you found yourself delivering a service?
Yes, well, that particular was delivering the services where it was a family's request. They weren't really overly bothered about a particular minister or any religion or anything, and it's the done thing in Scotland where they said, well, the funeral director can take the service, and as a funeral director you never really say no. So yeah, okay, well let's look into it, and that's exactly what we did. But going back to the what happens if nobody turns up, and unfortunately that's happened to me a few times. So the services that we've turned up to where nobody's been present have been arranged by the solicitors, and that did happen. We had a particular service at a crematorium. We planned the whole service, myself and the vicar, so a full running order: welcome, introduction, opening prayers. We had 2 hymns, the Lord's Prayer, and so on. And on the day we turned up, and as I said, nobody was there. There was just myself, the team of bearers, and the vicar. So we had the service. So we carried on as normal. Everything ran exactly the same. We carried the coffin into the crematorium, and myself and the vicar went through the service. So I sat in front of the vicar, and he preached to me. We sang the first verse and chorus of both hymns. Those of you who are listening that know me, I generally can't sing.
That was not a good experience.
It's terrible. It must have been bad for the minister, really. But and then we had our prayers, and everything ran exactly how it should do. And the person in question got the send off that they deserved. So I think it's a difficult one, because sometimes it's not through people not turning up. It's just that sometimes people do genuinely just keep themselves to themselves, and if that's how the people are, then so be it. So, I mean, how would you deal with this? I mean, again, it's the service that we put together. There wasn't really much about the person who died, because there wasn't really much to say about him, because the solicitor was the only real person who had any connection to, and that's all we had. So it was the service, the standard common book of prayer as such is where we started.
Do you know, it's a really interesting question, and as a celebrant, independent humanist, whichever side you come from, we don't have that common book of prayer. We don't have so we have a blank sheet of paper, as much for somebody who has no next of kin as somebody who has a whole family who want to tell their story, but they deserve something to honour their life. And I've had many situations where I've been dealing with a solicitor or an executor of a will, and they might know a little bit. They might have met that person a few times and said, well, he liked to play darts, or he was a really big Middlesbrough fan, but there's a lot you can pick up from perhaps the music choices that they've asked for. So it might be a classical fan, or he was a great fan of Jerry and the Pacemakers. The year they were born, you can probably pick up and make some assumptions about what life might have been like. You've probably got an occupation, so you might know a little bit about what they did. So there's always something, I think, that you can find. If they've been in a care home for a number of years, it's great to speak to the care home staff and just kind of say, what did you know of them? What did they enjoy doing in those later years? And actually, sometimes you'll do all of that investigation, and you'll go and speak to people, and they'll go, do you know what? He just wouldn't want this storytelling. That's not for him. Yeah. He wouldn't want any of the details of his life sharing. And that's when you kind of go, okay, so what do we think is just a nice, gentle, genuine, authentic poem or a song or something that is just gives, if it's me and the bearers, just gives us a moment to remember a life. We don't know him, but we do know that he will have meant something to, or they will have meant something to people.
Yeah, it's sort of honouring that life as such, which is great. And actually, as we're talking, that sort of leads us on to one of the other questions that's been brought in, Nichola, which is, can you or would you ever refuse to conduct somebody's funeral?
Oh, that's a taxing question.
Straight in.
Good job, I've got a glass of wine in my hand. So could you ever refuse a service? Of course, I'm a freelancer, it's my business, I can say who I do or don't serve. And I think celebrancy funerals won't be the only occupation where you're asked to make really difficult decisions that question your conscience. A surgeon, a nurse, those kind of occupations, would they treat a convicted killer? But they make a promise to save lives. And I think when I became a celebrant, you make an equal promise to give people a respectful and dignified farewell without making any judgment on their life, without putting your own values on how they've lived. So yes, having said I wouldn't refuse a service to give somebody that farewell, I think then you think about, well, what actual service do you try and create? It's never going to be one where you're trying to honour their life in a glorified way. I think families are very honest about who their family member is and some of the darker moments where they've walked in the shade. You think Ian Huntley died recently, and there will have been lots, I think, of questions around, well, what was the right thing to do about, as you've mentioned, Carl, disposing of his body, which needs to happen, and whether there's a funeral that goes with that. And I'm sure the questions went out about who would take that on. But for me, I think if the family came to me of, let's take personalities out of it, but any convicted criminal and asked me to take a service, I would really think about what they needed and what they needed to move forward. And families are very honest. They'll tell you what their loved one has done. They'll tell you if they spent some time in prison. They'll tell you the less glorified aspects of their personality. And I think you could create a service that helped the family heal but didn't glorify a life that would be difficult, in a way that you're still true to your profession but not sacrificing your own values. And I am skirting around the edges a little bit because I'm conscious this is quite a sensitive topic and different people would feel differently about it, but very much for me it would come back to the family to say, what is it that you need to move forward? They're hurting, they've lost a loved one, they might be embarrassed, ashamed about what a loved one's done, but they still need to heal and they still need to move forward. If they were asking me then to kind of go beyond what I felt was appropriate and glorify a life in some way, then that's probably where it becomes difficult, and I'd have an honest conversation with them. But I would hope we could come to some sort of compromise where it's not about kind of what somebody did, but it is about what the family need. And I think that's the best way to look at it, is you can only ever go on your own personal values, what you can live with, but our job is about delivering what families need. And I think there would be a way, I hope there would be a way that you could find your way around that without sacrificing your own values.
I think it is difficult as well because all of that particular group of people who you've mentioned, it also has that sort of stigma attached that really is that good for business as such or bad for business. So I think it's a good point that you make, Nichola, that the industry that we're in is the disposal of a human body, and whether rightly or wrongly your feelings, which is what you have to take out of this, but that's the industry that we're in. And again, whether it's good for business or bad for business, that's the industry that we're in, and it is all about the business side of things, which is a difficult one.
And I think not necessarily just the business side of things, it is about a legal requirement, and when you come to circumstances such as that, you have to separate the two. And I've done services for people who are still in prison for whatever reason, and my job is not to judge. And some of those families I've sat with, there's people in prison because they had a difficult life and made some really difficult choices under difficult circumstances, but they loved their family and they tried to be a good dad or they tried to be a good mum. So I think you have to just take every single situation for its own circumstances, not bring any of your own judgment into it in terms of how they live their life, but where there is a requirement to just give people a decent and respectful farewell, then we have the duty to do that. And I think because ministers would probably say the same, prison officers, people who try and work with offenders, it's difficult. It is our job to judge, but it is our job to do our job.
Correct. Yeah. No, I agree. I fully agree.
Ooh, that was a tough one.
That was a hard one, was it?
Thanks for what I said that question in.
Yeah. Well, one of the next questions that we've got in, which was one I think I'll answer as well, which is what happens if somebody dies alone and nobody sort of finds them for a week or two?
Oh, interesting. Please give us your advice and experience.
He has lots of experience, unfortunately, and it does happen. People do go missing and aren't found until, unfortunately, it's usually the smell that people are found. Of course, if there's loved ones around and they haven't spoken to them in a few days, then that's a bit of a tricky one. But certainly when you go over the week into 2 weeks, and even up to 3 or 4, as you can expect, the natural process of death takes over, and people do change and unfortunately deteriorate. But as funeral directors and the FSOs who go, out all hours of the night and during the day, that's still a person. That's still a human being, and regardless of how they are or what state they're in, they still deserve to be treated with care and dignity. And as hard as it is, you've just got to get in, do the job, but also still look after that person. It is difficult, and it does have its moments, I must say.
And do you know what? It makes me so proud to hear you speak like that, because I know you speak on behalf of all of your colleagues in the funeral industry who, whatever the circumstances, if they are going to prison, into a prison to recover a deceased, if you are going out to somebody who hasn't been found for a couple of weeks in difficult circumstances, you do every single time give your 100% best effort. You treat people with dignity, with respect, and genuinely I can say this to anybody who's listening and is sceptical of the funeral industry, and we just pile it in a body bag and shove them out the door. It is not that.
No.
It's absolutely not that. Come and spend a night with a team working, an on-call. Yeah. And I am so proud to be part of this industry, because it's people like you who go out and do that.
Yeah, I must say that the companies that I've worked for and work for currently, we always turn out in suits. So if everybody's ever tried to pick anything up in a suit, regardless, crates of lager or moving tables and chairs in a suit, it's quite difficult. And ideally, the outfit you would want to wear isn't a three-piece suit. However, it's that level of respect that we have, and that is, again, as we keep mentioning, the high standards. That's how we do things. And regardless of who the person is, or how they've died, or however long they've been resting for in a particular position, or one of these things, or however they've taken, however death has come along as such, it's our job to treat that person with that a huge level of care. So yes, I mean it is difficult. But I'm not going to lie. We've been very candid on a lot of episodes that the smell isn't great. Of course, everyone, people who have lived this will know. But there's little tricks of the trade. So of course we wear face masks. But we also carry a tub of Vicks in the car, which put a little bit of a touch of Vicks under your nose. Now a lot of people would think, well, that clears your nose, which it does. However, if you put a little bit of Vicks under your nose but breathe it through your mouth, that completely changes the whole aspect of things. So yeah.
And as we're being very open and honest, it's not always a pristine body. People don't just always die beautifully in their beds and peacefully in a care home. Sometimes it can be body parts, there can be a lot of decay, there can be a lot of liquid, it can be very difficult. And you guys just crack on and deal with that time after time. And I know when we had our funeral services operative on speaking about the calls that they deal with, she talked very much about the realities of just never being surprised, just dealing with whatever comes up when you go to that call. Yeah,
that's it. And again, it's thinking about doing things in a methodical way that gets the person, whoever they may be, safely out of the situation they're in, and then back into our funeral home in a proper, as I said, methodical manner. And whether they are, you get all sorts, as you said, people, unfortunately, road traffic accidents, bike accidents, or people who are of a little bit more of a larger nature. They don't choose where they die, and it's not a perfect death. And that, again, that person has to be moved safely. And whether you've got to do that, we go out with 2 team members, but of course you've got to be very safe with all of the team. So if you need a 3rd or a 4th member, then that's what you do, and that's how you do things safely. And that keeps the deceased safe and also the team safe. And that's what we do.
We did promise that we would always be honest on this show, and I think our honesty and vulnerability is coming out in this episode. While we're on some of the technicalities, the kind of logistics of funerals, and we also had a question in asking, can 2 people be cremated at the same time? I'm not sure of the answer on that one.
Well, a lot of people would probably just say, oh yeah, of course they can, but no, they can't. Crematoriums nowadays are really quite high-tech, state-of-the-art pieces of equipment, and the cremators themselves are all regulated, and the crematorium staff are trained to a very high level, and the machines that they have that sort of measure all the different sort of levels and the heat temperature and so on, can detect what's in there, so they would know if there were two people in there. It's as simple as that. And of
So
course,
I can't sneak a second body into a coffin?
no,
without
you can't.
anybody
So
knowing?
Steve's safe at the moment, so producer Steve is safe. He can't be disposed of. But obviously, of course, once the coffin disintegrates and you see the two people there, you certainly can't. Definitely not. One after another, yes, so husband and wife, one after another is fine, but it's certainly not two at a time. No.
And we can have a joint service for two people.
You can.
Just the cremation won't happen. There's absolutely nothing to stop 2, 3, 10 lives being celebrated at the same time.
Of course.
With 10 coffins if you wanted to.
If we had to, yes. Yeah.
But the cremations would happen separately.
Individually, of course.
Okay, so while we're on that topic as well, how much ash is there after a cremation? And why don't ashes look like ash?
Well, so this is quite a big myth that a lot of people seem to think they know. Everyone says, oh yeah, and you hear it as funeral directors, and I'm sure you do as celebrants, is, oh no, they just save all of the ash up, it's all in a big box, they scoop a little bit out and that's what you're given. Now, I can genuinely say, hand on heart, that doesn't happen. I mean, there'd just be hell on if that was the case. As we say, the cremation industry and cremations themselves are all very tightly regulated. And now, if you sort of can imagine the structure of a bone, that is a very dense material. And after a cremation has taken place, it's still there, almost, not as a full skeleton as such, but it is quite there are parts, the larger bones as such, and there is a machine called the cremulator. And the cremulator is like a giant, almost like a giant pestle and mortar as such, which takes it down to what you would see and what all the family members see as the ash that you see today. Of course, if there's crematorium managers on that they'd like to come on and go into further detail, then of course please do get in touch. But of course that's generally the basis of it.
Wow, and is there any coffin in the ashes that you get back?
Not at all, no. So the way that the coffins now are designed and the filtration systems at the crematorium, the heat, so the crematorium chambers themselves are charged usually, I think, up to about 900 degrees. And from there, it's then monitored. It drops slightly once when the coffin's placed into the crematorium, it's charged as such. But the coffin literally disintegrates and is then taken out through the filtration system of the crematoriums. Of course, the solid oak coffins and solid mahoganies are take a little bit longer, of course, to cremate. But essentially, that's what happens. And of course, the cardboard coffins, the wicker coffins, the sheep's wool coffins, they sort of almost disintegrate with the heat.
So I think we have about another 20 questions we could get through today, so we might need another fast fire funeral episode this series. But this is what we absolutely love, answering the things that you guys want to hear.
Yeah.
So do keep firing your questions in and telling us the myths we haven't busted and what you still want to know. But I am going to close today on one question that came in, slid into my DMs again while I was on holiday, and I thought it was a really interesting question actually. And Carl, that is there anything that you wish families knew before they sat down with you to plan a funeral for their loved one?
Yeah, and this is just one of the genuine simplest answers ever, is to know that there's nothing off the table, everything goes, and there is so many different options, and families can literally pick and choose anything that they want. And anything that's wacky or bizarre, they think, oh, this is a strange question. It won't be. It's you tell us what you want and we'll cater it. And I'm sure that's the same in celebrancy as well, is when you get asked to do random things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not kind of the one thing I wish families knew, but I just wish they weren't scared. There is nothing frightening about meeting myself, an officiant, a minister, a funeral director. By the point you speak to us, the worst has happened. It can't get any worse for you. We are only ever going to make things easier for you. So please don't be frightened. Please, yes, know all of those options are open to you. We can do anything you want to do. The wilder the ideas, the more creative, the more energetic we can get about things. We love that. But equally, don't be frightened if you're saying, I just want something really simple. I just want a couple of songs, maybe a bit of a poem. I don't really want to do a eulogy. I just want it really simple. That's okay. We're not going to try and force you into something you don't want.
No, and that's it. And is that you are always in control of that funeral service. There's no funeral director in the country or celebrant or minister would ever come in and tell you what you're having. You tell us, and that's as simple as that.
That is such the point, and that's what we're trying to get over more than anything in these podcasts. So please just feel empowered for you to say farewell the one way you want to say farewell, or the service you want to create for your loved one. That is all that matters to us, is that when you walk away from that crematorium at the end of the day, you've had a service that has helped you move forward in whatever way feels right for you.
Definitely.
Carl, that's been an awesome episode.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Loved it. It was brilliant. And the dog stayed quiet for the whole time. He's been snuggled in your crotch. That's probably why.
Yes, to be fair. Yeah, at times.
So, Carl, tell me what the weekend has in store for you.
Well, we've got a busy weekend. We've got my son. He's going out on his D&V camping trip, so we've got to get...
Go, Jules.
Little Jules, yeah. He's off and away on his toes to camping and getting up to all sorts of shenanigans, I'm sure. So he's away. So myself and my good lady Sherry are going to have a bit of us time over the weekend, which will be lovely.
Probably means you'll fall asleep in front of the TV at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. That'll be it.
That's what's happening, yeah. What about yourself? Are you out and about, or what have you got planned?
We are. Producer Steve and I have a bit of a busman's holiday tomorrow. To head down to the National Funeral Exhibition. It's a 2-yearly event put on by the National Association of Funeral Directors.
That's correct.
Absolutely brilliant event. I've heard such good things coming out of people who've been to it already. It's been on Thursday, Friday. David Knowles, who's been on our show previously, he has been raving about the things he's seen there today. Some brilliant talks, some amazing suppliers. So
I think it's great for the funeral industry, things like that, because people get together, share ideas. There's new ideas. There's things that you've not heard about, and things. It is really it's a superb event. It really is.
It is, absolutely. And my friend Keith over at St and Foster has pointed out 1 or 2 interesting coffin displays to go and have a look at, so we're going to go check those out. We'll do a bit of a review next week. We are hoping to recruit some speakers for the podcast. Brilliant. So hopefully we'll meet a few people who want to come on the show, and equally maybe we'll come home with a big kind of sponsorship deal for Over My Dead Poddy.
You never know. But
Who knows?
We look forward to hearing all about it, definitely.
As long as they don't get any editorial control, because I'm not sure how they would rein us in.
So. No, definitely not.
So thank you so much for tuning in to episode 5. We are halfway through episode 3. Coming up in the next few weeks, I believe you have invited a minister onto our show in the next week.
We have. We've got the very experienced Reverend Canon Martin Fletcher of Richmond, obviously St Mary's, really good guy, and he's going to give us a huge insight into what the religious side of funerals look like.
And for anybody who's thinking, religion's not really for me, I want a non-religious service, it'll still be such a great episode to listen to, because funerals and churches are changing, and I've worked with Martin on a couple of kind of joint services that we've done, where we've maybe had me doing a celebration of life in a village hall, and then Martin has gone and done the committal in a churchyard at the burial, and they're such a beautiful way of blending different rituals, different beliefs.
I agree, and I think it's going to be a great insight as to what funerals used to be and to what he has in store for the future, and I think that'll be a really, really useful episode for people to listen to, so they've got all of the information at every stage.
Brilliant. So no pressure, Martin, we're expecting you to be amazing when you come on next week. So brilliant to be back. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any more of those questions, please fire them our way, and we will see you on episode 6, series 3 next week. Thank you for listening, and we really hope you enjoyed and were inspired by this week's episode. Remember that you can get in touch with us anytime to ask a question, offer to be a guest, or to request that we bust a particular myth. You can get in touch via any of our social accounts, Over My Dead Poddy, on Facebook, Insta, or TikTok. Or you can drop us an email at overmydeadpoddy@gmail.com. Just a reminder that whilst all of us work in the funeral industry, none of us are fully qualified grief counsellors. And therefore, if you've been affected by any of the issues that we've discussed today, we highly recommend that you seek out professional or medical support to help you with those conversations. Should you need any support, please do get in touch and we can hopefully signpost you in the right direction. But we can't offer those services ourselves. Thanks for listening, and we can't wait to bring you the next episode.